Welcome to Living Chronic, the podcast that explores the realities of living with chronic illness and disability while redefining how we thrive in our personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Brandy Schantz, a disabled veteran and chronic illness warrior, here to discuss the challenges, triumphs, and untapped potential of life with a chronic condition. Before we dive in, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening. Now, let's change the way we think about disability together. Hi, this is Living Chronic, and I'm Brandy Schantz. Today, I'm welcoming Natalie Hayden, another Crohn's warrior, TV journalist, mom, and all things fighter. So, welcome, Natalie.
Thanks so much for having me, Brandy. Appreciate it.
I'm so happy you could be on the show today. I always have a particular love for interviewing my fellow Crohn's patients. We have a very unique life experience and struggle. So having another one on is always great. And you've been dealing with Crohn's disease for quite a while now. As a matter of fact, you said you were diagnosed just as you were graduating college. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I was. I'm coming up on my 20-year anniversary, which is hard to believe. I had just graduated from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I had hopes and aspirations of working in TV news. It was May 2005, and then all of a sudden, things started to change with my health. I started having horribly high fevers up to 104,
Mm,
debilitating fatigue. Anytime I would eat or drink anything, I would have to run to the bathroom or I would have a lot of pain.
mhm,
And it took about 2 months for us to get answers, and I was one of the few people actually who was diagnosed in an emergency room and told I had Crohn's disease. That was following a CT of my abdomen as well as a rectal exam, and from that point forward, I was hospitalized for about a week, and I left the hospital on 22 pills a day, and my world just came crashing down in that moment, and you go from being perfectly healthy and feeling so fine, and then you're given this diagnosis without a cure. So at age 21, as you can imagine, it was a difficult
mhm.
point in my journey.
Yeah, it's so young, but of course, your story is, in that respect, is quite normal. Many people get diagnosed with Crohn's disease pretty young. You're just starting life out, trying to figure out what next. How do you put one foot in front of the other and become the person you want to be? So, getting that diagnosis can be very difficult. But on the other end of things, kind of another viewpoint on this, and I'm sure the non Crohn's patients will think I'm crazy for saying this, but the Crohn's
Mhm.
patients are going to get it. You're pretty lucky to have gotten diagnosed right there in the ER.
I sure am. I'm very grateful for that. For a short time, my general internist thought it was maybe my appendix or my
Mhm,
gallbladder. And then finally, my mom's a nurse and she saw that I was home on the couch at 6:30 p.m. unshowered and a lot of pain, and this has been going on for months at this point, and she said we got to get some answers. So I am definitely grateful that I was able to have an answer and a diagnosis as quick as I was.
it's really great to understand what you have. That's always the first step because then you can get your mindset and start looking for a treatment plan. Of course, when you were diagnosed, it was 22 pills a day, and that was the norm.
Yes, times were much different back then. I never like to say it's a good time to get diagnosed with
Yeah, no,
IBD right
no.
now, but it is definitely better than it was, previously, even before I was diagnosed. There was basically just steroids and surgery. So we are
Mhm.
very fortunate nowadays that there are so many biologics, biosimilars, different immunomodulators on the market, that can really help us get our disease under control and have an improved quality of life. So 22 pills a day was a lot. I remember to this day, my mom used to lay out all my pills on a paper towel timed out throughout the day. And I was on 60 milligrams of steroid for 3 months, which completely
Mhm.
changed my appearance. But in that
Mhm.
moment, I knew that I had worked so diligently to become a TV journalist that I didn't let my Crohn's disease stop me. And I ended up getting into the TV business in October of that year. So just less than 3 months after diagnosis, I was working at an ABC station in Minnesota. And I look back at that young Natalie and I'm so proud of
Mhm.
her because I can't say,
Yeah.
I would do the same thing again because it was really brave. I moved away from all family and friends on all that medication with this new diagnosis, and it was a lot to come to terms with. But I think the fact that I kind of pulled up my boots and kept going and followed my dreams and didn't let my career go to the wayside because of my health issues really is what propelled me through and got me to where I am today in my journey.
And, I can't emphasize enough just how brave that was. And I want to know what was going through your mind? What were you thinking? How did you push yourself when your entire appearance changed? Because I know I've experienced it. I think everybody I've ever spoken to with this disease has experienced it. They put you on these high doses of prednisone, and within a matter of hours, sometimes suddenly you start to see your face change, your body's starting to change. And it doesn't take very long before 20 pounds of water weight's on. You're starving, so you're adding another 10 pounds on top of that. And so many of us just hide. I've done it myself where I just hide. I don't want to be in public. Don't take my picture.
Yes.
Just let me be in this corner. So, what really inspired you to be so brave and stand up and say, this is what I've always wanted. I'm going to be a TV journalist, and this is how I look today. Deal with it.
When you want to work in TV, it is a
Mm,
lot of work. So I used to work 4 days unpaid every single night
mm,
at Marquette on Marquette TV. And then I would travel in my off season when I wasn't a student. And when I was back home in Chicago, I would take the 5 a.m. train to CBS Chicago and intern from 7 in the morning till 5 p.m., 5 days a week. 2 summers, 2 winter breaks, 2 spring breaks, all unpaid.
mm,
And I finally was the point where I could be a journalist myself and make this a career. And I was not about to stop. So, what ended up happening was because of that appearance change, unfortunately, and I needed to kind of rethink about how I was going to get into TV. So, I don't want to bash TV, but of course, a lot of it is about appearance,
it
unfortunately.
is.
And
Yeah.
I had to work behind the scenes the first 10 months. So, I did producing, which actually I always tell young journalists is a great way to get started because you have a better understanding of what puts together a good story, how
Mm,
to write, how to time a newscast, why that timing is so important when you're out in the field. So I worked as a 6 and 10 p.m. producer. And when a reporter role opened up, I said, I really want to go after this. And I was off the steroid. I'd
mm,
proven myself at the station. I'd got my foot in the door. And just about 3 months after reporting, I got an email from a station in Wisconsin saying, we want you to anchor Wink Up Wisconsin. And I was
oh, wow.
25 years old at the time. So then I anchored there almost 4 years and I had many hospitalizations. You're off the news desk, you can
Hmm.
imagine. You're in the spotlight. People are counting on you as their morning person that they wake up with their coffee to. And all of a sudden, she's not there for 2 to 3 weeks, but there's no answer
Hmm.
why. And, they're calling the
Yeah.
station. They're wondering what's going on. And I return and I look different. And it was tough. Those moments were very, very
Mm,
challenging because I did have to go on camera then and I did look different. And people probably did know something medically was going on with me. And I took a little hiatus from my TV career and I worked in PR in downtown Chicago, but I missed TV
mm,
so much that I went back into it and I anchored a morning show in Springfield, Illinois. And while I was there, I was starting to get a little sicker with my Crohn's disease. I had
mm,
never ultimately reached remission that first decade. And I remember my GI telling me, look, Natalie, you're getting up at 2 in the morning. You're eating lunch at 7 a.m. You're barely getting a bathroom break. You're on the news desk 5 hours a day. This is
mm.
not, very conducive to living with Crohn's disease. And I
Right.
started to see that because I started to have bowel obstruction, hospitalizations. And I decided to break my contract 60 days early and I left the news business. And when I left the news business, I vowed to myself that I needed to be that voice so many others needed
Hmm.
upon diagnosis and through those first initial years of trying to find yourself and regain that identity. And that's why I
Right.
decided to become a patient advocate. Because when I worked in TV news, I didn't feel comfortable back then going on social media. Nobody was going on Facebook the year
Right.
it came out and saying, I have a chronic illness. And Instagram wasn't even out till I was a news anchor in Springfield, Illinois. And back then, people were just posting pictures of food and vacations. So it was a much
Hmm.
different landscape. So when I ultimately had 3 bowel obstructions in 15 months that resulted in bowel resection surgery, 18 inches of my small intestine and my appendix out in 2015. I was engaged to be married. It was August 1st, 2015, and I was getting married that next June. And I sat in that hospital bed and I said, on my diagnosis anniversary, July 23rd, 2016, basically a year from now, I am going to launch a blog. I've never written a blog. I've never written an article for a blog. I don't know what the name of the blog is going to be, but I'm going to do this. And I spent that next year socializing names for a blog. And I ultimately came up on Lights, Camera, Crohn's, an unobstructed view, which is supposed to be kind of a play on words because I had so many bowel obstructions. But I also wanted it to be a transparent look at the reality of life with IBD. At the same time, prior to then, any people that I had really come across online happened to be kind of negative in how they took
Right.
on their IBD. And that's just not how I do
Right.
my advocacy. If you follow any of my work, I'm very interested in showing all that's possible despite your IBD, whether it be career, finding love, being a mom, you
Hmm.
name it. I like people to know that, yes, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be setbacks, it's going to be more challenging, there's going to be dark days. Just yesterday, I couldn't even really get off the couch and I'm in remission. And my 3-year-old just had to kind of sit
Hmm.
there and watch TV with me all day. And
Yep.
he was a true champ. But it just goes to show that you can feel fine. Like today, I feel great.
Yep.
But yesterday, I was debilitated. And my husband had to, clean up all the dishes and take the kids to go to bed. And I didn't even get to say goodnight to them because I was so weak. My body felt like, cement. And those moments happen, but it's about rising above and recognizing that tomorrow's a new day and you are capable of so much despite your
Hmm.
IBD.
I really love that you're doing that for so many reasons. The first one, and as I've gone through my own journey, I've learned that there's just not a whole lot of mentors out there to help you to figure out what can I do? What's my way forward? I was told by multiple doctors over and over and over again, oh, you should just apply for disability. You should just apply for disability. Well, by the way, folks, I've worked through this entire thing. I just had to figure it out on my own because there weren't people there. The other thing is, we always feel crazy, don't we? There's times I think, you know what? I don't think I'm really going through this. Maybe it is in my head. Maybe I'm the only one failing at this task. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. I go through all of these doubts, all of these things in my head. And when I find somebody else who's going through it, I have a moment of relief, not because I want you to feel what I feel by any stretch, but because there's somebody else. So I'm not crazy. It's not in my head. This past weekend, I was on a girls' trip to a spa, and one of my friend's moms came along. Her brother went through a very difficult brain injury and has had some similar issues that I had after suffering my reaction to Crohn's because it affected my nervous system, including my brain. And I could not. I have a lot of speech issues. I used to speak multiple languages very fluently. Now, which language I speak fluently, it could sometimes change depending on where my brain is. And sometimes it's not even English, and that's clearly my first language. And she was telling me a story about how he just went from speaking Spanish fluently to not knowing a word, and he had to rehab to get back in. And I thought, yes, not that I wanted him to go through that, but I'm not crazy. So you being out there just as one of the first ones, it's so meaningful when people have somebody to reach out to and say, you know what can I do? Should I give up? Do I need to just go on disability? Can I be a mom? And that's one of the things that you really specialize in and are really inspirational with, because if you don't already have children, I think many of us question, well, can I have kids? What's a mom look like? Or if you're already a mom, you think, as if things aren't already hard enough, am I failing because I have Crohn's disease? Am I ruining my children's life? Sometimes we're very, but we all are, right? Nobody wants to be a bad mom. And you're really modeling how you can be a Crohn's patient and a really great mom. And that's a lot of
Thank
what
you.
you've been doing.
Yeah, it's what I'm very passionate about. I think, there's often this, as you mentioned, there's this kind of burden, feeling of guilt. Am I measuring up to the healthy mom
Mhm.
down the street who's able to go on the adventures to the park every day and who's able to do everything and provide for their kids and be all the things? And I think you need to remember that you are the best mom for your kids and you will be able to do all the things in your own way. And I think that something that I've really witnessed with my own children, my oldest is 7, is that from a very young age, because it's all they're used to. An IBD, whether it's the whole family has IBD or just one person. And in this case, I'm the only one in my family with IBD. It's a family disease. So when I'm down or when I'm impacted, it impacts my kids, it impacts my husband, it even impacts my parents when they know about what's going on.
Mhm.
And I think that that builds a sense of empathy in your children at such a young age. And you see it, even my 3-year-old right now, if I'm in the bathroom, he'll get me the toilet paper and then hand me the soap for my hands. And, he sits there Indian style or with his legs crossed and he's wondering, is mommy going to be okay? But he's also offering me words of affirmation and comfort. And it's amazing at such a young age when you see them thrive in those moments and you
Mhm.
think they're going to be they're going to do just fine. I'm doing something right here.
Yeah.
And I think that so many women and through my advocacy, I hear from so many around the world about their questions about whether their body can sustain a pregnancy whether they should stay on medication in pregnancy and that guilt that comes along with that, the research that's out there about which medicines are safe and effective and which ones you should refrain from, what you should do about breastfeeding, how you should deliver your baby vaginally or C-section. There's so many questions, and that's all normal. And I just want to let people know that there is so much input now from amazing gastroenterologists who are doing the work. There's the piano study that's looking at medications. There's the wisdom study that's looking at fertility, and you can be a part of the future. So something I was really passionate about in all my pregnancies back then, I launched my blog and got pregnant 2 days later. Little did I know. So my entire blog is from the start. I didn't really know anybody that was an IBD mom. So you're seeing me find that maternal fetal medicine doctor and becoming a high risk pregnancy, no matter what, whether you are in remission, whether you have mild disease or you have severe disease, we are all considered high risk pregnancies. And that's something that just came out this past May from the Global Consensus Conference on IBD and Pregnancy, which I was a US ambassador for, and something I'm just so honored to be a part of, because I want to be that voice that helps the women that are out there that want to be moms. And that's okay if you don't want to be a mom, but just know that if you do, you can do it. You can make it happen, whether it's through yourself or whether it's through surrogacy, for infertility. There are ways to get there. So just remember that adoption is also an amazing option that I know so many IBD moms have really benefited from. So maybe you think, I don't want to put my body through even more than it's already been through. This is a heavy thing.
Right.
Pregnancy is not easy on a healthy person. I will say my 3 pregnancies, the key is going into it when your disease is in a calm state. And because I had bowel resection surgery that year leading up to my wedding, we knew we had to capitalize and get pregnant immediately, because I didn't know if I was going to lose my remission in a month. So we ended up getting pregnant a month after our wedding, and we didn't have a lot of time as a couple married, without a child. But I feel so grateful that the timing of how it all played out with my surgery and my remission enabled me to bring 3 healthy babies who were all exposed in utero to biologic and in breastfeeding. And they are all pictures of health, knock on wood. And, we keep track of them. They were each part of a mother to baby study, which is another great way and avenue to be a part of. My youngest is part of piano, which he will be tracked until he's 18 years old. And not only is it amazing to be a part of the research, it gives you peace of mind about your own family and your own kids, and you're paving the way for the future so that, when my daughter Sophia, who just turned 6 last week, if she wants to be a mom in the future, she's going to have this research right at her fingertips because of people like me and so many others who maybe did a little bit extra homework, took a few extra phone calls, answered a few surveys. The day I delivered my youngest, we had to deliver the cord blood to FedEx. And, it's a lot when you're in the hospital and your husband has to leave. And, it takes extra work, but that extra work makes life-changing differences for the IBD community and beyond. And just as you said, Brandy, this sense of community, the IBD family is so special. I never want anyone to feel isolated or alone, because if you go on Instagram, you will see thousands upon thousands of people living your similar reality. Yes, our disease presents uniquely in each person. Yes, our experiences are different, but so many of us have been on steroids. So many of us have been hospitalized. We've all received that same diagnosis and that burden and what that feels like to hear those words. You have Crohn's disease. You have ulcerative colitis. You have this the rest of your life. There is no cure. We know what those words feel like. We know what it feels like when we're out with a bunch of friends. Nobody has IBD and we're in, dealing with a pain level of probably a 7, and we have to put a smile on our face because we don't want people to be worried about us. We know what it's like when it's Christmas Day and we're at a family party and we look at the food that's on the spread at the center island in the kitchen. We think, this is going to cause me to run to the bathroom. Do I feel comfortable going to the bathroom at this person's house? We know what it's like when we're at a store and we're shopping and we have a cart full of things and there's kids with us. And we think, oh my gosh, I have to use the bathroom right now. I don't have a moment. There are so many moments we can relate to one another. So I want you to feel seen and understood. This disease does not discriminate. Anybody can get IBD. No matter what your race is, your ethnicity, you name it. So just know there are people out there who want to hold your hand through this. There are so many friends I've had, Brandy and I have never met in person. There are people that I have never met that I've talked to and texted for 10 years. I've never met them in person. But when I'm going through a Crohn's flare now or a little issue, I don't reach out to, my best friend from home. I reach out to my Crohn's people because you guys get it. And it's easier on us instead of diminishing the struggle or trying to explain, this is what abdominal pain feels like. This is what it's like to go to the bathroom 15 times a day. You guys get it. So it takes out that kind of guesswork and that kind of just giving an excuse for how you're feeling, and you can just be the real you. So don't hesitate to reach out. I love when I get emails. I love when I get DMs. I love when you follow me and you comment on a post and then we can connect from there. I think sometimes it can feel a little intimidating for people, and they might feel weird to say like, oh, I want to get pregnant. Am I going to reach out to a stranger and ask her? Yes, please do.
Yeah,
That's not strange at all. That's what we love. We always say in the
absolutely.
IBD community, there's no TMI, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's interesting because we do have conversations that we can't have with anyone else. One of the most important relationships in my life, a friend that I only met a few years ago, and through a mutual friend. And when we found out we both had Crohn's disease, we looked at our mutual friend and said, well, what took you so long to introduce us? But of course, if you're
Exactly.
healthy, you don't think about that. You don't think Crohn's person plus Crohn's person equals good friends. But yes, being able to just wake up in the morning and text and say, you know what?
Mhm.
I haven't had a bowel movement in a week and I'm throwing up. What do you think? Should I go to the ER?
Exactly.
Or, talking about in graphic detail some of the pain we're experiencing right now. Just being able to just let it out.
Mhm.
Let it out. And they're not going to question you.
Exactly.
It's
There's zero
so
judgment.
none. It's so important to our mental health. And I can't say that enough. Do you know that person a
And
long
mental
time?
health is
Doesn't
such a
matter.
biggie.
We're bonded.
Yes. With mental health, it's just, I think you struggle so much because there's this constant inner conversation going on in your
Hmm.
head, which can make you feel crazy. But you know that every single touch point of your day, every decision you make, whether you're in remission or not, is going to impact how you feel. So you're constantly thinking, if I drink this cup of coffee, like I did not drink
Hmm.
coffee this morning because I did not want to have to run to the bathroom from this interview. I don't know what's going to happen. You have to weigh that risk and benefit all the time. And that's exhausting
Hmm.
when there's no end in sight and nobody around you has that understanding of what you're going through in each
Right.
moment, especially when you're out in public or in a social situation. And you really have to think, if I drink this beverage, is it going to make me have abdominal pain? And, it comes to the point where, I'm 41 now and I really don't drink alcohol, rarely ever, maybe once
Right.
or twice a year, because I've realized it causes me a lot of pain. And even my husband will be like, are you sure you want to drink that? Even if it's just one drink, because he knows that oftentimes, I struggle till the next day then because even just one drink can cause me to have abdominal pain.
Yeah, and it's so much easier when you don't have to have that discussion, or even have that discussion if nothing affects. For years, I was in a flare that they just, as you know, they just couldn't get under control because, unfortunately, with the like cancer, where there's a set treatment plan, we go through it for 6 months, ring the bell, walk out the door. Sometimes it's just trial and error, and if you failed a medication, then you have to start all over again. And we just couldn't get me in remission. And I tell you what, I remember I stopped eating almost entirely for months. And finally, my doctor said, look, food, stop, stop, stop journaling, stop, with the not eating. It's not what you're eating. We have to figure this out on our own. Stop relating it to food. And even that is something that somebody who doesn't have Crohn's wouldn't necessarily understand. If you do, you say, oh, I know, been there. Yep, it's not the food this time. One place maybe you're like, hey, if I eat something in a tomato sauce, it really kind of irritates my stomach. And then you could
Mhm.
stop that. But if you're in a bad place, there's nothing. You're just, and it's
Yeah.
so difficult to go through that. It's so emotional. And then to have to explain to somebody who's coming up to you and saying, well, did you go gluten free? It's,
Exactly.
I'm surprised we have never seen a case where a chronically ill person murdered somebody who said gluten free.
There's
I
so
feel like
many
it
snake
speaks to us
oil.
how good we
Yes,
are.
there's ways to fix our illness where, I was told once to sit out in the sun, eat more red meat. I mean, it's just the list is never ending. You don't look sick. We hear
Yes.
this all the time and it diminishes the patient experience. And food is a major psychological impact for so many of us because what do you do if you eat and you get pain? You're not going to eat. And then what
Right.
happens? You get malnourished, you drop weight, and you get even, anemic, all these different other health
Hmm.
complications start spiraling out of control. But it is so understandable to not want to eat food or drink something when you think it's going to cause you pain. And that's especially a challenge in the pediatric population because, you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine being a 10-year-old and you notice that every time you eat dinner with your family, you're in the bathroom or you're on the couch laying down. So
Yep.
what is a young child going to do? They're just going to stop eating. So,
Yep.
it's complicated and it's something that should not be diminished. There's so many people have mental health issues and anxiety related to, the depression that oftentimes comes about with IBD. And you're not alone in that. So many patients
Mm-hmm.
are in your shoes.
Yeah, it's, we talk about it all the time again amongst ourselves on this podcast. Eating disorders are quite common. And you know what? That's okay. Talk about it. Let's talk because I've been through it too. There is a lot of PTSD that can be associated with having Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. There,
Yeah.
and I'm saying that as an Army combat veteran. People feel very nervous to say the words PTSD because they say, "Oh, well, I wasn't a soldier." Well, I was, and I can tell you, I do have PTSD from some of my chronic illness flares. So talking about it is so important. Advocating for others is
Mhm.
so important. And I learned very quickly as I've been going through some of the more difficult parts of my struggle that understanding, taking a moment to recognize the things I have in life that enable me to be able to advocate for others. I have a very stable economic life. I'm very well educated. I have the ability to reach out to various doctors. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. If I'm having a real bad moment, I could just jump on the metro, go up to the Rayburn building, and start knocking on Congress people's doors, and they know I do it. Um, but it's really important, I think, in life, if you have a privilege and you have that ability to help others, then I think it's really incumbent upon you to actually reach out and help others. And it's also very healing in a very, selfish way because I'm not sure I would have ever survived the things I've gone through had I not said, you know what, let me take this moment to help somebody else. And you have a very similar mindset. We both do a lot
Mhm.
of advocacy work for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. I'm on the board of the local DC, Maryland, Virginia board for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. You are attending our big conference next week. So tell me a little bit about the work you've done with Crohn's colitis and what's going to be going on next week.
Yes, I've been affiliated with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for a very long time, even before I came out and shared my story. I remember doing take step walks back in
Mhm.
2010 with my college roommate, who surprisingly was also diagnosed with IBD after college graduation. And we lived all 4 years together. So that makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But we did take step walks back then. And then before I really became an advocate here in St. Louis, where I live, I did a couple take steps walks and was the honored hero one year. And after I launched my blog, I got more affiliated locally with the Mid America chapter and had the opportunity to MC two of the galas. And I've worked on the national foundation work as well, on different research projects and different articles about IBD pregnancy in particular. And something I'm really most excited about is that I was selected as one of the patient reporters for the Crohn's and Colitis Congress for 2025. So I'll be going to San Francisco and reporting live from the conference on many different sessions. And I'm so excited to be there, get a pulse on that research, and be able to share it in ways that are understandable to the patient and caregiver communities. And it's just so awesome to have that opportunity thanks to the foundation.
The foundation does such amazing things. I'm so fortunate. I feel so thankful to be involved with this group. Um, my listeners know I had a very severe reaction to my Humira that caused now some very lifelong health issues that, just are going to go along with my Crohn's disease because that's just what life has handed me. And knowing that the Crohn's Colitis Foundation is there, one of the many great things they're doing is there's now a study on the safety of these medications long term because, you talked about taking 22 a day. Well, Humira was a huge step forward. The newer medications we have are a huge step forward. I'm now on Stelara. But the fact of the matter is, all of this is still new. This has all happened within, a 20-year span, which sounds like a lot of time, but just don't know what can happen after you've been on a med for 10, 15, 20 years necessarily,
Exactly.
or what all of the reactions are. How can this affect you tomorrow, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. So every little thing this foundation does is so important, from studying the health and safety of Crohn's patients on biologics during pregnancy to what are the effects of these drugs and what can these reactions look like so doctors can better identify them. It's really important. We're out there every day helping people, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am that we have Crohn's Colitis Foundation. And honestly, we have some of the best people working in that foundation. I'm truly in awe of how great everybody is and how much work gets done.
It's truly
So,
fantastic. Everybody really genuinely cares, and even if they don't
mhm,
even have a family member or any connection to IBD, there's just such a sense of camaraderie amongst people in the
yes,
foundation. And really, I hope that any patient or caregiver that is watching this does the work and just even goes to the website and sees all the incredible
yes.
resources right at our fingertips.
Yeah, because we've come so far, and so much of that is thanks to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. There's such great work being done, and you can access so much great information that we didn't have even when I was diagnosed in 2013, because I've only been diagnosed, well, I guess it's been a little over 11 years now. So
Mhm.
it doesn't feel that way sometimes. It feels like either 1 year or 1100, one of the two.
Yes.
But there's just so much we can do, and there's so many ways people can help. Off our Take Steps teams this week. I'll be in a meeting next week with the rest of the folks that run this thing every year. It's so much fun. I mean, even if you just donate $20 and get out there and walk with friends and take some photos, it's something that
Exactly.
contributes.
It's so fun. I'll never forget my youngest brother ran the team challenge Chicago Marathon for
Mm,
me in 2016, and, it was so emotional. I was pregnant with my oldest, and to see my brother, blood, sweat, and tears, training all those months leading up,
hmm
even crying while he's running the race in pain, all to make a statement and spread awareness about Crohn's and colitis. It's something that I'll never forget in my life, and if you're a runner participating in half marathons or full marathons for Team Challenge is just unbelievable.
Yeah, the team spirit coming together, helping people that we all love. Because like we said, even if we've never met you, I love you. We're a family. We're in this together.
Yes, we
So
are.
I'm really
Holding
looking
hands
forward
together.
to, yes, I'm really looking forward to your reporting. So tell me, how can everybody check out what's happening at the Crohn's Colitis Congress next week? How can we keep up with your reporting?
The best way to keep up with it is probably over Instagram. My handle is Natalie Ann, A-N-N, Hayden, Hayden. And then the foundation will also be sharing everything that I'm sharing. And then we'll also be sharing it on Twitter/X, whatever you'd like to call it. And then I'll probably also be keeping track of subject matters that I think are really going to be of interest to the
Mhm.
community. And then doing my research and sharing articles on my blog, Lights, Camera, Crohn's. I think that's probably the best way to really take the information, take some time to understand that research and the implications and what it means and how you can participate, and then share that through articles. I had the opportunity to attend the Advances in IBD conference in Orlando this past December, and I was a speaker on 3 different panels. And I took so many research and information that I gained from that conference and have been creating content since. I've learned so much. And when you are just in the room hearing everything firsthand, you also realize the exponential, amazing amount of research that's going on, the work that's being done
Mhm.
by the researchers and the GIs, and just how tirelessly they are working to improve our patient experience. So you might feel sad or upset about where you are in your journey, but just know on
Mhm.
a daily basis, so much work is being done in our honor to help benefit us, to drive that research, to make more medications, to improve our quality of life, to get a better understanding of nutrition, all the things. It is going on a daily basis. And as patients, we can speak up and voice where those gaps are and where we want more research. So it's
Yep.
really a win win to connect on social media, have your fingertips on that research so you can say, oh, when I go to my next clinic visit, I'm going to ask about this. I'm going to talk to my doctor about these studies that are available and how I can participate. I want to know more about nutrition. There's so many different nonprofits and amazing groups out there that you can connect with and really learn. And I think an empowered patient is an educated patient, and you are going to
Mhm.
feel so much stronger in your disease journey the more that you know. knowledge really is power with IBD.
It really is. It really is knowledge and knowing that you have a family out there of support. So even in the hardest of times, we're still there. We're still here.
We're not going anywhere.
Nope. Nope. We all need help. And it's important to speak out, speak up, and reach out because that's how we all are going to survive. That's how we get through this together.
Yes, I mean, it's just even the simplest things, like when you're driving to clinic and, maybe it's a 40-minute drive and it's traffic and you had to miss work, or your children are with you in the back seat going to the doctor's
Mm-hmm.
appointment with you, and you think, why me? Why do I have to do this? Or you're getting labs every 3 months and everybody's sick around you and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to be in this, laboratory right now getting my blood
Yes.
drawn," but you need to. And there's those moments where you kind of have to pause for a second and just kind of come back to reality and understand, yes, this is your normal. No, it's not everybody's normal, but you don't have to see your disease as something that's your identity. It's a part of you, but it's not all of
Mm-hmm.
you. I often say, I used to see my IBD and my Crohn's as a scarlet letter when I was a young 20
Yes.
something and I wasn't married and not a mom and trying to kind of hide it from everybody in my career. And now I see it more as something that I'm super proud of. I think
Mm-hmm.
it makes you a badass, to be honest, that,
Agreed.
I worked full time nonstop, until I had my kids. Now I do advocacy full time. I had 3 healthy kids. I do all the things like everybody else, just with a chronic illness, so I
Absolutely.
think that you have to think of yourself as, I'm a little bit extra in a good way. My
Yeah.
disease doesn't have to rob me of everything. It can give me incredible perception. When it's sunny outside and I'm able to walk and I have the energy to do so, or go for a run, or take my kids out on an adventure, when I do have that energy and feel great, you pause for a moment and you thank God and you say, wow, I'm so grateful for my health today. When I was a healthy, invincible 20-year-old, I
Mm-hmm.
never once thought, oh, I'm so grateful for my health. You
Nope.
just take it for granted. You don't even think about it. It's just like you would just expect to feel well every day. And with all the
Mm-hmm.
sicknesses going around between like influenza and RSV and all these different sicknesses right now, it's terrible, especially in my kids' grades and everything. You just think, everybody needs to remember they're going to hopefully get better from this in about 3 to 5 days. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't something that's a lifelong illness. And for us, we don't know what the next day is going to bring. We don't know what dinner is going to bring. So, we have to live in the moment and thrive in the
Yep.
moments that are positive, and then recognize when we're in the low points, when we're in our darkest days, that the better days are going to come.
Because we have a superpower. One
We
of
really do.
my big advocacy pushes is higher disabled, particularly invisible chronic illnesses, figure out ways to use accommodations creatively so that you can retain
Yeah.
chronically ill employees, especially ones who've been newly diagnosed. And I always say, isn't that the kind of employee you want? Somebody who can wake up in the morning, have no idea what's about to get thrown at them, but know that they can twist, turn, duck, jump, do whatever it takes to accommodate that particular unknown today and make it work.
Couldn't say it
Don't
better
we all want
myself.
that?
That's so true, it really
Yeah.
is. And so many of us in the IBD community were type A personalities, so
Oh,
we're just, real go-getters in this community. I think every single person I've come across is exact personality, so
mm-hmm. We are type A plus all the way. Type A
yeah,
plus.
yes.
So thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to hear you next week. I'm going to be tuning in on Instagram. I'm going to be
Great.
sharing your posts. So anybody who's interested, I've got these posts coming out and, your blog, Lights, Camera, Crohn's. It's really amazing. Everybody get out there, take a look because you're doing really great work out there, Natalie.
Thanks so much, Brandy, as are you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Living Chronic. If you could please take a moment to rate and review and share this podcast, this is the best way to help this platform grow and create a community. In the meantime, you can follow along all the social platforms with the handle at Brandy Schantz on Blue Sky and X, and Chronically Brandy Schantz on Instagram and Threads. Don't forget to check out my website, brandyschantz.com. Have an amazing week and see you next time.